Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk. Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Chris Lee Kennedy, and this is the show that brings you all the day's biggest movie news with insight into what it all means. Joining me, as always, is AMC Movie News Senior Editor John Campia. Hey, John.
Hey, Chris Lee.
And we also have joining us today Ben Kendricks, Managing Editor at Screen Rant. Hey, Ben.
How are you guys?
All right, today we're going to get things started with this. By far the biggest movie of 2012 was Marvel's The Avengers, and in 2015 they return in The Avengers 2. There are now rumors that actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt may be a part of Avengers 2 and the Marvel movie immediately preceding it, The Guardians of the Galaxy, as the lead character Peter Quill, aka StarLord. John, what do you make of all this?
You know, this is funny. I don't know how many times I can say this. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I do. But people are going to start to think I don't because the last two roles he's been mentioned for, I hate. I do not like the idea of Joseph Gordon-Levitt being Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Because for those of you who have read the comic, and I know not a lot of people have, to me, Peter Quill, Star-Lord, seems more seasoned to me, aka older. Little older, a little more seasoned, and a little bigger. I mean, I keeps coming back to that for me, for him, because he's a small guy. And I know I say this all the time, but I want Nathan Fillion as StarLord. I just think he's a bigger physical presence. I think he's a great performer. He works great with James Gunn. We know that. I just think I would love to see that. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, You could tell me almost any role that he could be in, and I'll eat it up. But I don't want him as Batman, and I don't want him as Peter Quill, and I would rather see that. So look, it's never a mistake to incorporate talent, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is talent. So if they get him as Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, I will more than go into it with an open mind because he's a great talent. I will. But if you're going to ask me would I cast him as this, not me personally.
All right, Ben, just for the sake of arguments, let's assume for a minute that all the rumors are true. If Joseph Gordon-Levitt is being offered to be the next Batman in an ongoing Justice League franchise or Star-Lord in an ongoing Marvel Avengers franchise, which one do you think he should take?
It's a tough choice, right? Because Justice League is kind of an unknown quantity at this point. Like, we're not really sure how that's all going to come together. We don't really know how it's going to work in terms of like where Batman would fit into that. But so for I'm kind of in the same camp as John. Like, I don't really see him as either character. So either of these, as far as the moviegoers are concerned, I think especially in general, he's faced tons of backlash, right? We've already seen that. People sort of have said there's certain people that like want to see him in the role and think that would be kind of a fun way of continuing Nolan's story. But as far as the actual portrayal of that character, some people have a hard time picturing that, especially after Christian Bale. So I think if he does Justice League, there is going to be backlash to that, and that's something that he's going to have to like sort of be able to handle as an actor and not get too like bogged down in being insecure about that, I guess. But I mean, Marvel is such more of kind of a known thing at this point. It's an established shared universe.
Yeah. We
know that they like know what they're doing. We have all these standalone films first to help develop the characters, and I guess, you know, if he was to be in Justice League, we'd sort of have that. We'd have his origin story. But we really don't know what this Justice League film is going to be like in terms of quality at this point. There are concerns that it's being rushed and that there should be these standalone features first with Wonder Woman and some of these characters. So for me, I guess it kind of depends on what he wants to do. If he wants to see that character through, the Batman character that he's sort of set up, then I mean, that might be an exciting thing for him to do. But if it's looking for a paycheck in a maybe more sort of predictable universe in terms of quality, I mean, I think the Star-Lord role is the way for him to go. Yeah, but I'm still in the same camp as John.
I completely agree. I mean, the potential backlash. If you do Batman, look, people don't have a preconceived notion of what Star-Lord is supposed to be, because most people haven't read Guardians of the Galaxy, unfortunately. So you can go into Star-Lord and kind of be your own character, and that can work. Batman, coming off of Christian Bale as Batman in the Christopher Nolan universe of Batman, there is just, I agree with Ben completely. I think there is a huge potential for backlash. I mean, we should mention here, there are a couple other names being mentioned for Peter Quill Star-Lord. We've got Jim Sturgis is said to be in the mix, one of the final three. But also, the most interesting name to me is Zachary Levi, which caught me completely by surprise. For those of you who don't know Zachary Levi, he's Chuck on TV's Chuck. But the reason I'm confused by that is because Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but Zachary Levi is going to be in Thor 2. So how do you have him in Thor 2 and have him in the same movie universe as that? I don't get it. Can you see how this could possibly work?
Yeah, I mean, that was confusing to me as well, especially because the whole concept of a shared universe is that you wouldn't do that kind of thing.
Right.
You would sort of accept that there are lots of actors out there, and you might love Zachary Levi, but if you loved him so much, you would have had this Guardians of the Galaxy movie in mind already. We knew they were working on this film in terms of pre-production and sort of planning it before they had to cast him sort of last minute in Thor 2, so that seems like a really short-sighted thing if you love Zachary Levi. I guess the argument that could be made is that he's going to be in prosthetics again. I mean, he has kind of like, facial hair and stuff like that. Maybe they can kind of bury his appearance, and then, he'd be StarLord in this other thing. So, I don't know. Maybe he's not going to be recognizable enough. But I think that would be, at this point, I mean, Zachary Levi could be an interesting choice for StarLord, but I mean, he's probably a long shot because of that in some ways.
Agreed.
In the first Captain America movie, Chris Evans' love interest, Peggy Carter, was played by actress Hayley Atwell. And there has been a lot of speculation if the actress would be returning for the sequel, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, in 2014. The speculation is now over, as Atwell has announced that she will not be returning. The current rumors are the new love interest will be Sharon Carter, the niece of Peggy Carter. The actresses in the running for that role appear to be Jessica Brown Findlay from Downton Abbey, Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, Teresa Palmer from I Am Number 4, Imogen Poots, Friday Night, and Alison Brie, The 5-Year Engagement. Ben, if you're the director for the next Captain America movie, who'd you go with?
Well, I think for me, so I'm a little bit biased in this category because I love Alison Brie, and I think that she has kind of proven herself in a variety of things now. We know she can do comedy. She's, been in The 5-Year Engagement and other things, as you mentioned, and, she's been on Mad Men in a dramatic role. Like, I would love to see her kind of get a shot at this sort of geek culture that she's already kind of culled a little bit of in Community. I mean, we've seen them do sort of nods to superheroes, and there is there's already sort of an established, I guess, fan base for her. Whether or not she'd be great in a big budget, action superhero movie, I don't know. But I think if out of a lot of the actresses that are mentioned on that list, and it's no disrespect to anybody that's mentioned, I think she's shown that she can kind of carry different elements of like movies and television shows, and in terms of tone. So I think, I mean, personally, I like her a lot, and I'd be really interested to see her get that opportunity. I'd also I think Emilia Clarke is another sort of interesting choice on that list. I mean, obviously a huge standout and a character or a personality and person that we all like a lot from Game of Thrones, and a lot of people have been sort of interested to see her, in sort of a higher profile movie project. So she would maybe be my second choice, but I mean, my choices at this point are more only based on the actresses and me sort of being interested in seeing what they can do with a role like that. Not so much the actual Sharon Carter character, because we're not exactly sure how that character is going to fit in and where, exactly what role she's going to have in it in terms of how she's going to be introduced, and how much of this is flashback and, how much of it isn't, and everything. Because we do know that some of the film is going to be flashback, and some of it will take place in the present, and so we're still kind of trying to sort out how big of a role she'll have, and what exactly that romantic relationship will be. I
gotta disagree. I gotta completely disagree. To me, it's Jessica Brown Findlay. It is Lady Sybil Grantham from Downton Abbey for a couple reasons. One, I think she's a dynamite actress, but secondly, if you're going to say she is, a descendant of Atwell's character, you can completely convince me that this girl is completely related to Atwell. Not just in appearance, but in the way she talks and in her mannerisms. I actually find it kind of stunning, the resemblance. But like Ben, I'm a little bit biased, except I'm not a Mad Men fan. I'm a Downton Abbey fan. So I'm kind of in there, but if they are going in that direction and they are doing, the descendant, niece, granddaughter, whatever, I would go with Findlay myself personally.
All right. 2012 was a record year for the box office, and the studio that finished at the #1 spot was Sony Studios, whose movie made just over $4.4 billion worldwide. Skyfall was Sony's top film, earning over $1 billion worldwide. It was followed by The Amazing Spider-Man's $752.2 million. Men in Black 3 made $624 million. Hotel Transylvania, $312.6 million worldwide. 21 Jump Street, $201.6 million. Total Recall at $198.5 million. And The Vow at $196.1 million. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Great year for Sony. John, are you surprised?
I'll tell you, the biggest surprise to me on this was Hotel Transylvania. Yeah. If you had told me Hotel Transylvania was going to make north of $310 million, no way. No way would I have thought that was possible. But also, it is kind of, this was a great year for Sony. And I'm not just talking about the box office results. 21 Jump Street, we just did our top 5 comedies of the year. That was a great movie that I totally told people for over a year was going to suck. I thought that movie was going to suck, and it was one of my absolute favorite comedies of the year. Of course, Skyfall was their big, huge success. But the surprise is, look, when you sit down and you look at the numbers, and you really look at which films Sony put out, okay, yeah, then it's not a surprise. But you forget that. You forget how many big performing films Sony had, because obviously, automatically you think, it's going to be Disney because they had the Avengers. Yeah, but Disney didn't put out a lot of films this year. I think the biggest surprise to me on the list was that Paramount came in last out of all the studios, making about half of what Sony made, around $2.2 billion. But I think, yes, I was totally surprised to hear it was Sony, but my surprise went away once I really sat down and looked at the list of films that they had put out this year, except for the Hotel Transylvania. Still completely stuns me. Ben, what about you? Were you shocked by any of this?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like when you look at Sony's sort of slate from this last year and the films that they've made money off of, it's kind of a consistency thing, right? Like they have been sort of consistent this year. Total Recall may not have done quite as well as maybe they were like ultimately hoping and stuff, at least in the States and everything. But in general, I mean, these movies did well. They weren't maybe the knockout successes that, you do, like you mentioned, John, like The Avengers or something, but they were consistently good. And I think Skyfall was actually a pretty big surprise in terms of, we actually have talked on the Screen Rant podcast about how Bond movies are not the most profitable thing. We think of them as iconic, and we think of them as as like this character that kind of can't be touched and is this sort of staple touchstone. But in reality, like Bond films don't make a ton of money, like respective of, what a lot of these like sort of blockbuster type characters do. And Skyfall, we sort of were saying that going into Skyfall. And then after Skyfall, it really sort of changed the map as far as Bond movies are concerned. I mean, that movie came out and did really well consistently for weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks. I'm also a little bit shocked about Hotel Transylvania. When I wrote a review of that, I was not a fan of it, and I'm still sort of surprised that people kept coming out week after week for that one as well. But a really consistent slate. I'm excited to see what Sony has in store for the next couple of years. Like Amazing Spider-Man 2. I know we're all sort of got our eye on that with Jamie Foxx as Electro. So it'll be fun to see kind of what they do with some of this momentum, and if they're able to capitalize on future sequels on some of these movies that did really well. I mean, 21 Jump Street, seeing them revisit maybe some of these will be interesting, I think, especially in the coming years.
Agreed. Well, listen, folks, that will do it for us. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, before you do anything else, stop what you're doing. Take a second and click on that subscribe button. Become one of our subscribers on our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. Thousands of people already have. It'll keep up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, our editorials, and of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. So stop what you're doing, click subscribe. And listen, while you're at it, don't forget to become one of our followers on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook. About 4 million people already have by going to facebook.com/AMC Theaters. I want to thank our very special guest, managing editor over at ScreenRant.com, Mr. Ben Kendrick. Ben, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's always fun.
And, of course, Miss Chrisley Kennedy. Chrisley, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. Don't forget, 24/7, get your theater, showtime, and movie tickets over at amctheaters.com. My name's John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.